This is Phantom Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with A. Garcia for the first time. I want to let everybody know that we are a sponsored podcast on Newsly, so you can listen to us on Newsly after this podcast is over. So use coupon code GHOST for your 1 month free premium subscription. You can stop scrolling and listen to your podcast on Newsly platform. So again, thank you for being on the show. And I think you mentioned like we're maybe you want to have a little background on that.
I'm sorry, it broke up. I have a little background on what?
Your name. I mentioned your name is A. Garcia, and maybe you want to tell the audience like what the story behind that.
Okay. All right. So the story behind preferring the initial is because I have had so many things I needed to worry about as it relates to safety and privacy that I have a story to share. And post traumatic growth is obviously a big part of that. That's why I'm here today to talk about that and what it is. And that is a form of me feeling safe and vulnerable at the same time. And so that is something that I encourage all of you to think about. I'm sorry?
So maybe you can talk about maybe we can talk about more about like the experiences that you've had from your bio. You were talking about be your incredible self is an acronym that I see that you mentioned in your bio, and you also talk about the idea of post-traumatic growth. So maybe you can tell people be your incredible self, the BYIS. What does that actually mean for you?
Okay, well, so it actually is interesting because you're not going to expect it. The Incredible She-Hulk, okay, is a superhero that has superhuman powers. Okay, she's smarter than the Incredible Hulk. She's stronger than the Incredible Hulk. She is, I mean, by hands down. Okay, so that's one area how it started. And that is because I survived a double attempted homicide when I was 8 months pregnant by the father. And I legitimately, when I heard my 8-year-old cry my name in fear, and a voice I never heard before, when I was in that situation, it clicked. And he was straddled on my stomach, on my 8-month pregnant belly, with his child inside of me, and he was straddled on top of me with his left hand around my neck and his right hand closed fist punching over and over to the head. Okay, and when I heard my child's voice, I became this like adrenaline driven, superpower having, fighting for my life mama bear, that I was able to slam my feet on the ground and have him roll over me and grab my baby as soon as they got to the bottom step and run out of the house like that, barefoot, in pajamas. And we were brand new to the neighborhood. We knew no one. We had just left from where about 1,500 miles away. We were not even unpacked yet. Okay, so that's not where the story begins. That's just a little insight of what Incredible Self and the She-Hulk and all of that has in common and where it's leading up to. So I'll pause there because that was a lot to take in.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in. So that was a really you mentioned in your bio that you had over 35 years you've navigated domestic violence and privacy, safety, and vulnerability issues. Um, and so at that moment, you became your incredible self, and you were able to escape that particular moment. But maybe you want to talk about maybe the moments before that, and then I guess where you are today is where you're advocating and teaching people about this kind of post traumatic growth and how to you know take advantage of that kind of post traumatic stress situation.
Absolutely, 100%, because that situation that I'm talking about is 20 years ago. And so it does take time. There is a method to the madness. It's not something that happens real time or overnight. It is literally like 20 years later. So most definitely. And there's so much from that moment, obviously, till the 20 years. And I would have to say that if you go back to childhood, because most everything stems back to childhood, okay, and you think about moments that you were your saddest, your most difficult moments, how did you overcome, how did you cope, what were you doing? Because as a child, we have an inner voice that we listen to. We have a natural, like, given response where we listen to our intuition. It's when we become adults we second guess ourselves, or we doubt things, and we make decisions feeling like we knew better later on when things didn't turn out right, you know. And so for me personally, when I was a child, I was abandoned by my mother when I was 2.5, and she left in the environment she could not withstand. And it was me and my baby sister. And 9 months later, she passed away of cancer. Overnight, I lost everything that a child would need in order to have a healthy childhood. Parents, siblings, like my dad completely checked out. That was his coping mechanism. That's how he coped. He just worked third shift and slept all day and had a whole different life, night and day. It was like, I, I don't even know how to articulate what that must feel like, because I don't know. I just have accepted and respected that, that's what it was. And so as a child, I had to figure out, okay, how do I cope? What do I do? And I didn't have the capacity to sit down and think about it like I'm saying right now. It was just natural things that I ended up doing. I believe that it was probably because I had to, like, mow lawns and clean houses and help out, wherever I can, just to get food in my home to eat.
Did you feel you had to grow up too soon because of all that stress? Because typically, the mothering influence is the primary influence most people have. And since you lost your mother and then your father checked out, did anybody else in your family step up, or you ended up having to take a role of like extreme responsibility early on?
So both. So at that time, the other siblings, my aunts, they were young. So they did step up, and it was up until about fourth grade that all of that was over. It was just now me and my dad. So all that time there was, some help, but it was not what it could have been. But I am blessed. I feel blessed
Yeah,
for
it
what
could
it
have
was.
been.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's hard to not have, a parent. That is a big formative thing. I took sociology as a major. It's not psychology, but the understanding of like microcosm level interactions and macrocosm interactions, it all goes back to like the inner child. And I've talked to enough therapists to understand, like, if you have those kind of traumatic events in childhood, they kind of follow you through until you actually understand them and actually, deal with them head on. So when did you start to like deal with these issues like head on and try to identify a way to get to a better place in your life? Did it
Yeah.
take a
So
while to beyond coping?
thank you for asking. I would have to say that was like third. That was like second or third grade, because I stayed at all the after school programs that there was available. Anything after school, oh, I was there. On the way home, because I had to walk a mile each direction. On the way home, well, I say each direction, but not necessarily. On the way to school, yes, it's about a mile. But what I did after school, however long that was, that's a different story. So there was a park on the way home, and I signed myself up for gymnastics. I signed myself up for wood shop. I would do anything and everything to be anywhere but home. And
Mm.
I was taken in to so many different families through friends, and I learned different cultures by, being out and about and welcomed into everybody's home. And I spent so much time at the cemetery, like doing homework, having conversation, like sometimes getting locked in there and having to jump the fence to get out. I mean, like that's where I felt my true like emotional bond. And I found myself staying so busy, so busy. My mind was always just
Mhm.
going, occupied. And yeah, and there was nobody that really told me what time I needed to be home. And because my dad worked third shift, I eventually at teenage years got into a lot of trouble,
Yeah, you had
on top of the
freedom,
neighborhood that
and
we
then you
lived in.
yeah, you had a lot of freedom, and then you probably weren't, because you're keeping so busy, you weren't actually like looking at the people that say the idea of looking at the looking glass, looking at yourself, and asking you the hard questions. If you keep yourself busy, you don't have to ask yourself the question. And then, if you don't have, like a father figure or a mother figure giving you guidance, you're going to find your own guidance from exterior sources, from like the macrocosm. You're going to find it wherever it is. And so, it's at a point that maybe extreme independence. You have mentioned a term called extreme independence. So maybe you can talk about what that meant to you.
Oh yeah. Okay. So there's a lot that ties into that. Extreme independence. I mean, just starting as that child, I would have to say, losing everything overnight and having to figure out how to navigate every single thing. I mean, down to finding food, down to making, everything outside of the house. I had to learn how to live in the world very, very early and
Mhm.
figure out how to raise myself, basically. And that is like a form of forced independence. I mean, I don't feel like I had a childhood at all. I was working at like such a crazy young age to take care of me.
Mhm.
And then when that, double attempted homicide occurred, I never went back. I didn't go back. And I had no job. I had no friends. I had no family. I didn't know anything. I was in the middle of nowhere. I was ready to give birth in 45 days from the day that happened. And for 20 years, I have never gone back.
Yeah, so you just had extreme independence because you didn't have a lot of people to depend on other than your own wits and the kind of being able to live in the world you started to learn. So how did you actually cope with that? What did you actually do from that point to get to where, I guess it's like it's multiple steps, but maybe you can talk more about the story about how you got through that.
Yeah, so I would have to say that in my teenage years when I started really hitting the streets, there was a lot of the Puerto Rican culture that is what I was exposed to mostly, and they are beautiful women, and they are I have like five moms. I have five mommies,
Mhm. So they
and
took you in. So you had five mothers that took you in and felt that they should try to nurture you.
oh yeah, and the nurturing was more street smart than anything, which was the most beautiful gift anyone could ever ask for, being a female young in the world by themselves.
Mhm.
And as much wit that I thought I had, to avoid that, to avoid certain things, such as that type of violence, shocked and devastated, the world completely turned upside down. What I learned in those teenage years of having the ability to, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
That's
Having
okay.
the ability, it's 4:20 over here. So having the ability to, mind over matter and get through it. You have no time to sit there over your emotions. It's not about, what happened and what can I do? And it's not making fun of it or making light of it. It's that, staying in that mindset and allowing yourself to drown in these different layers and layers and layers. You cannot make any moves or solid decisions if that's where you're at. So just that whole mind over matter. And, the one thing that is something that I didn't know existed back then, but truly worked, and I talk about it today, is that mirror work. That mirror work. You need to get in that mirror and talk to yourself. That is definitely what I did. I was like, okay, this, that. What would you tell your friend? What would you tell, the one that you love so much? You better than you. You know this, you know that. And, however
That's
ugly or, I'm sorry.
That's interesting because you have all the other statements that you don't live anywhere but your head. But like when you look in the mirror, then you're actually talking to that voice in your head. You're actually confronting. And a lot of people don't take the time to do that because you have to. Like I think creative people, like I'm a musician, right? And we listen to our inner voice because we're creators. And so you have to trust yourself and you start to kind of and analyze all the things that are happening and try to create something out of it. And I think you're doing the same thing as that your creative force is to actually create like a way to cope. And that's still a creative use of your capabilities is to actually help other people through processes and programs and things like that. So I still think that's a creative process working, but you have to understand like yourself and people around you.
That's right. Situational awareness. Absolutely 100%. Yes, that's one of the things that I talk about as well. And the triggers, so that is be your incredible self. When you have gone through so much, trauma in your life, and I haven't even covered some of the, so many other things. I was recently in a motor vehicle accident less than 3 years ago that I had a 1% chance of surviving. 1% chance. Okay. If I were to show you the pictures, you would not even believe it. And I am moving. I am up. I am communicating. I'm able to do everything that I was able to do before. And that is by complete miracle. Complete miracle. And it is time for me to encourage and influence and show purpose of, when trauma hits and you are stuck in your head, and whether it's, I was physically laid out, I couldn't do anything. It was me and the ceiling day after day after day after day. And it's like, when you're in that situation, you have to build yourself up because you can be your own fate of your own life or death based on your thoughts, based on your belief system.
I totally believe that. Yeah.
Yes.
Because I actually am a cancer survivor at age 27. I had a level 3 sarcoma.
Wow.
And I know about something about being in the bed, looking at the ceiling. It was on my back, and had 2 surgeries and 8 weeks of radiation therapy. And I'm 55 now, but at age 27, I didn't know if I was going to be here. And it was it's one of those things where I think when you have a crucible moment in your life, you can take that and you can wallow in it or get beyond it. And I actually became the moment where I became who I am. I decided I wasn't going to be scared or put limitations on myself that I was going to do it. Because if I could have died at age 27 and I made it, why should I be scared of anything? I'm just going to take everything and just deal with it.
That's right. That's right. I love it. I love it. And that's exactly where I'm at today. And I wasn't there 20 years ago when that when I survived and fought through that double attempted homicide. I wasn't there. I was just survival, fight, protect, provide, protect. How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? How is this going to happen? It was so much. And being, trust me, there was so much that I had to navigate through in order to raise the kids and keep them, safe and in a normal childhood and not feeling like, I have to watch my back. I got out the hood. It's not that life anymore. You know what I'm saying? So there's just so much to the trauma and the mindset and how you cope with all that. And even before the accident, I had 4 surgeries because of that incident. Every body
Mhm.
part that I used to fight him off of me needed to have surgical repair.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a traumatic moment. Yeah.
So it's not like there's no triggers. It's not like it doesn't go away. I have a child by the guy. Of course I see things in my child. Of course there's other triggers. There's triggers all the time. So
Mm.
that's where the Be Your Incredible Self really is, founded on, is being able to identify your triggers, and in like moments of seconds you're able to figure out, do you want to respond or react, because you
Mhm.
know what it is that you're seeking as your outcome. And if you can apply that situational awareness and combine that with your emotional intelligence, damn it, you will be able to have the outcome that you're looking for most of the time. It's not guaranteed, but most of the time, but
But I
it
think,
takes that
yeah.
work.
Well, it seems like to me there's a like what I was taught when I went to school and through this experience is a holistic approach. Right? A holistic approach is not just having an immediate response. Like a lot of people deal with things from a tactical perspective rather than a strategic perspective. Like if you start thinking strategically, you look at the holistic long-term outcome of the things that happen. You don't just do immediate response for short-term gain. And I think that's where, that's when you started getting a more evolved mindset, more mature mindset, is that you learn not to just react or fight or flight. You learn how to have a strategic approach, right?
That is right. I want to show you, if I may, I want to show you this important picture that I took because I had to um, take it down to the pharmacy. And it is so many different um, prescriptions of medications. And oh my gosh, like I just really want to pull to the camera because you will not believe how many different medications they gave me over the course of 8 months.
Wow, that's a lot. That's kind of like my cancer treatments.
Right.
Yeah.
So that holistic approach, I mean, of course there's pain, of course there's things that you need to deal with, and what works for you, what you're willing to take, right? The risk to benefit ratio in your
Mhm.
mind. But the sooner that you're able to tailor off and deal with your ailments, or whatever you call them, when you're able to deal with them holistically, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, your mind is what guides all of it. Your body follows what your mind is believing.
Mhm.
All of it. If you believe, then and you follow that, it will happen. So, and that's both positive and negative. So it's learning how to intercept that negative critic that comes in, or that negative talk that's coming in. And you have to know how to intercept that, because we are our biggest hurdle. And if we don't figure out how to challenge ourselves to the point that we get out of our own way, we're going to stay stuck.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem with people put their own glass ceiling on themselves, right? Because they put limitations. Like what I found when I had cancer, I had all these rules that I was actually stopping myself from a lot of things. And then once like the ceiling got blown away, because then I said, you know what? I'm not going to be scared to try something different, because the person I was before the cancer wouldn't be on the mic. I wouldn't. I was behind the scenes. I was never up front, and I became a totally different person. People couldn't believe it because I was a super shy person who'd be like shaking. I couldn't get on camera. I couldn't get in front of people. I was a musician, but I would never sing. I was always in the back. I would never be in the front because I just didn't feel confident. And then I felt
Wow.
like, I have a right to have my own point of view and have express myself, and I don't have to give it to somebody else. And I think that's where people start to realize, like, you have a right to be you. You have a right for your point of view. You don't have to be subjected to other people's, be pushed down. You can express yourself, and there's nothing wrong about it. But some people feel very guilty about expressing themselves, and they don't know how to handle it.
And you know what? To that, sometimes it's not even guilt, it's just not knowing how. I mean, I can use myself as an example. When my oldest was, moving out, she told me that I was helicopter mom, and she, thanked me for being always there. However, she also shared that emotionally I was nowhere there.
Mm,
And that killed me. I didn't accept it at first. It was very hard to accept. And, I had to look at it, and I had to validate her feelings, because I was very matter of fact, mind over matter, extreme independence. We don't have time to feel about anything. We have to do. This is what needs to get done. Let's get to it. Come on, come on, come on.
mhm. Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And that's
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. Like it's very extreme. It's like, but yeah, I think people could. It's cool that your daughter told you that, because a
Right.
lot of times people don't tell people; they keep it in their head. And you're sitting in your family, and people have all these things, and there's a big blow up because they never told you. Right? Nobody tells the truth. It's like, okay, you're in the family, like, but you're not telling me what you really feel, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard to be honest. What I found after the cancer, I became like maybe brutally honest, and it started to like really show me who was in my life and who was kind of a tertiary in my life, who could take it and who couldn't take it, because then I was gonna tell the truth, and the people always, yeah, we gotta have tact. Well, sometimes you have to have tact, but there's too much tact. People aren't telling the truth, and you don't know who's around you. You have a bunch of people that are in your house, and they're not even really your friends, right? And I found out with cancer that, like, I started to find people who were so taken aback by the cancer, they were so scared of their own mortality, they started moving away from me. Not that they could catch cancer, but it felt like they didn't want to deal with their own mortality. And knowing me at that age, they couldn't handle it. So I said, wow, these are people that can't handle that. And it kind of showed me like who could handle it and who couldn't. So you start to get the truths in life, and you have to deal with them head on.
That's right. That's right. You sure do. Deal with them head on. And with that statement that, she made, that's exactly what started my path down, learning emotional intelligence and figuring out how to, walk through these uncharted waters. And, we went to a 3-day seminar to work through it. It was a stay on site, like all day, all night, 3 days. I
Mm,
never went through so much Kleenex in my life,
mhm.
and we did read, the 5 love languages, and we had true transformation. And it wasn't easy. After that, I stayed my course, and, she thought I was being sarcastic. She was rejecting it. She thought I was being sarcastic. And I was like, no, I'm really trying. It took her a long time to really acknowledge and accept that I was not being sarcastic. And,
Yeah.
and it took a while, but, today we are so solid. And, that's again a part of that post-traumatic growth. If you know that something that occurred that's out of your control, and you're traumatized from that situation, you know, you are smarter and stronger. Identify where you're smarter and stronger from that. And there's going to be things that lack and things that you discover along the way. And it's about, how do you want to respond to it? What do you want to do about it? What do you want to be with that? Because I believe deep down inside, everybody wants to be their incredible self. Who doesn't want to feel like they are the incredible She-Hulk that could be extremely smart, stronger than any damn body, don't need any human or superhero powers. They're all superhuman. You're just everything amplified. Who I mean,
Mhm.
who
But
wouldn't want
yeah, you always try to. I mean, I think the thing is when you're musicians, in order to have the confidence to be on stage, you have to have extreme kind of like what people think is like arrogance, right? So a certain level to be on that stage and believe you belong there, you have to have a certain amount of arrogance. The anything interesting thing I find is a lot of musicians, right? They're on the stage, it's almost like a different person.
that.
That
Hmm.
person, when you actually deal with them day to day, they're way more secure than what they appear on stage, right? And when they're on stage, they have this persona that you're like, wow, this person's all together, right? But like examples of that were like Michael Jackson and Prince. When they were on stage, they looked like hyper people. they're like, wow, they're totally confident. When you got to them on a day-to-day, face-to-face, their vulnerabilities and insecurities are all over the place. And you're like, wow, how can you do that? And they could do it like a lot of musicians, we can do it for a limited amount of time. We can be on that
Mm,
stage and present this other person. It's hard to actually be like that all day. Because you get to be, you kind of like are suffering from all your anomie and all your issues, and like and you just using this kind of hyper space to present this other version of yourself. And what I find is interesting is trying to navigate that so you can have that level of security in your life about where you are without feeling so like jittery.
yeah, yeah. And and start in the mirror. Start in
Yeah.
the mirror.
So on your website, beyondincredibleself.com, are you offering like courses or services as like a life coach mentor? Is that what you're doing on your website? Maybe you can describe what you do there.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, so Be Your Incredible Self is I have different programs and I do one-on-one coaching. I have boot camp, Get Your Mental House in Order, and the 6-month Be Your Incredible Self post-traumatic growth journey. I'm also a certified high performance coach, so I do that as well. I'm going to be updating my website with that. I just went through my second level. So I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And I want to share that I also established a nonprofit through all of this. It's called
Oh,
Confronting
wow.
Domestic Violence. Yeah. And Confronting Domestic Violence, our mission is to help relocate parents with children who have a
Mhm.
safe place to go, but not the means to get there. And so we like help relocate. I collaborate with different moving companies to do the move. And so I'm so proud to say that that was just established. We just had our 1 year anniversary and we're looking for all types of volunteers and contributors. So please,
That's nice.
confronting domestic violence.
Can you get to that from that website?
Can,
Can
I'm
you
sorry.
get to that? Can you get to your nonprofit from your beyourincredibleself.com website? Do you have a link there?
Oh, you're so wonderful. See, I'm a rookie. I've been off social media all my life. I've only been on it 2 years.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm 2 years in the making. No, and I thank you for that idea. I will be doing that.
yeah, yeah. It's
But
always
I'll put
good
it
to
in the chat.
create a landing page where you can get to everything. Like that's another thing what we do is like what we find is people you never know where people are comfortable getting their information. So if you create a landing page, it could be like everywhere that you are. So if you have something on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or multiple platforms, you can have it on a single page and people can get to however they want to interact with you and they can see the little icons and hit them. And so that's just another social media creation is the idea of a landing page, which allows people to access whatever you're doing from one spot.
Oh my
Kind
gosh. See, I'm
of
so social media ignorant. I need volunteers there too. Thank you for that great idea.
There's a tool called found.ee. Not that I'm pushing them, I don't get any money from them, but that's a way to build free pages to create.
Found.ee.
Yeah, found.ee. Yeah, found.ee. Yeah, I'll send it through the private chat. That's a good idea. Because
Okay.
I just sent it there. But if you find that, you can
Thank
create landing pages that have tools for Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, all kinds of things, TikTok, everything, anything that's out there. And then you just put your URLs into it, and you can add a photo, you can add a logo, you can do whatever you want um, to, to communicate. I've been out here for a while doing stuff. So, but yeah, it's just really interesting how things in life coach world in the mentoring world have opened up. And as a podcaster, I get introduced to people that do what you're doing. But I was also interested in the idea that we were talking about earlier is the post traumatic growth and what it is. And maybe you can kind of go more into like what that entails or the meaning for you and anybody that deals with your programs.
Absolutely. Yes. So, first of all, I know that it's something that is not commonly talked about or known. And it's recently and from in like the early 1990s, like 1994, it was just recently discovered by two doctors, Dr. Tadekchi and Dr. Calhoun. And in my layman terms, it is what I was saying earlier: when you realize and recognize the strength and the wisdom that you have incurred during your life from that traumatic experience, and getting to the point where you are able to live, in your head in a safe and vulnerable, happy space. And I'm not saying every single day and that it's perfect. I'm saying that, your coping skills are leveled up to the point where you can intercept your self-sabotagers, as I was saying, previously. That's in my layman terms. That is the post-traumatic growth. You're wiser and you're stronger, and you're sharing that. It's what you're doing with that.
Yeah, I think what I felt is like, from the different moments in my life where you have these like crucible moments and things, happen, and you have to learn how do you do a fight or flight response, or do you do a more thoughtful response? And it really depends on if you have the toolkit. Like if you've never been trained, it's why we go to life coaching, is why you get a degree, why you get an MBA, why you get a doctorate, because you need to learn how to assess what's going on. And the thing that's interesting, and I've heard people talk about, like, in the old, like if you get to the human history, like the fight or flight type of situations that happened if we were hunter gatherers, right? And then when you get to modern world, people are getting this fight or flight trigger all the time, and it's really causing a lot of stress, like disease that can cause harm. Because we're getting triggered. So many things are coming from all different sides, and people don't know how to deal with it. People aren't really trained how to deal with it, and so they're always looking for ways to handle it. And some people don't handle it well. They get into addictions, they get into all kinds of things. But so maybe you can talk more about that.
Well, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is that, yeah, I don't think anybody is can be trained on how to have a natural neurological response to any trauma at all. Like, how do you train for that? I will never know. But it is exactly what you said. It's how you respond and cope with it. And, it's going back to knowing you know you better than anybody else. And if you don't know, who you are, if you're that devastated from a situation that you're questioning and doubting who you are, what you represent, what your purpose is, what you mean, what, like, all of that, identify who you're not. Start identifying who you are not, because then you'll start seeing yourself and molding yourself into who you are naturally as well. Back to that holistic approach, right? It's how you go about it. So if you can start identifying that, you're also starting to build your boundaries around that. And of course, it changes and shifts. Your needs change as your circumstances change. And as you evolve and grow, it is the same concept. So it's leveling up, always looking for a way to level up. And going back to, and I'm sorry, I sound so repetitive, but it's true. That's the other thing. Being repetitive is, turns 28 days, it becomes a habit, and continuously doing that, it becomes a conditioned behavior. And so when you are constantly working on yourself and being, thoughtful and reflective and conscious, intentional, then it just becomes a part of you, and it takes the work and the desire.
Well, what do you think? I think a lot of people get trapped into comfort zones, right? They get into, like, I think in order to evolve and to do things, like in my business, my data, I'm into software development. And the thing is, what has happened from the mainframe to servers to crypto to blockchain, things change in my industry all the time. And like, so if you're like, oh, I'm only a mainframe guy, and you can't handle the new tech, then you get lost where you put a limitation on yourself. I kind of look at it as I have to reinvent myself and be uncomfortable with what I know. Is like I have 20 years doing this, but I need to learn something new. And a lot of people don't want to learn that new thing because it's hard. It's hard to challenge yourself. It's easy to stay in routine. And even with yourself, like if you don't try to handle the hot button issues in yourself. You need to avoid it. There's avoidance. So is that where you feel like to be your incredible self, you have to like not have that avoidance, right? You have to deal with things kind of head on.
That's right. You have to be ready. You have to be okay. So the first step is acknowledgement. Like you're acknowledging that you want to do something different, or you're acknowledging that you're in that comfort zone. And, it's about informed decisions, right? So if you're acknowledging, once you're acknowledging something, you have a choice to make. And your choice is up to you, whether it's logical or illogical. At least you're going to understand or know how you came to your decision, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you're acknowledging what it is. You have a choice to do something about it or not. And then based on that choice, it's, are you going to follow through or not? You have to hold yourself accountable, because if you truly desire and or want something, you will do it. And it is easier when you have no choice. And I'm saying that from, being without, a home, and being on, in situations and having to survive. It was easy for me to just know what I needed to do because I didn't have options. And sometimes when you have options and you get into that comfortable zone and it's enabled by others, that's also a difficult space to get out of. And again, nobody knows you better than you. So you have to set the alarm 3 times throughout the day. Get yourself disciplined on something that is going to remind you why you're doing it. Once you have the clarity as to why you're doing it, and then you're identifying the purpose as to why you're staying committed to doing that, you're going to have your motivation, your self-motivation, and the energy, because you're going to start seeing the results.
Yeah. I believe what I've found is like, it's like easy to stay in a routine. And well, I was in the corporate world for a while, and then I just discovered I didn't like it. It wasn't satisfying. It's like paying the bills, but I didn't like it. So I kind of went into consulting. I went into consulting because then I didn't have to play the game, because people were doing all these like performance reviews and this and that and trying to get to the different levels. And I'm like, you know what, I just want to do my art, and I want to do business, but I don't want to be constrained by that structure, because person like look like me, it wasn't getting that far within that structure because they didn't know what to do with me. so
That's
so so I'm
right.
like, okay, you don't know what to do with me. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna deal with it and own it. And then like now I've been into consulting for like 10 years, and I find I feel more comfortable because I'm not playing that game. Right. I'm not playing the game that they wanted me to play. I'm like playing it a different way. And I think you have to be confident to know what you want. Some people say, well, I got to do. My father stayed in the same job for 25 years, and he's like, he wasn't happy. And but he did it because of the responsibility, whatever, but you're not happy. And he's like, you got to discover, like, are you willing to actually try to get happy? Because some people like, well, it's easier to just be in something that's familiar, but you're not happy.
Yeah. Yeah. And yes, and that is also bleeds into relationships too, right? So I mean, you have to see what you're around, who you're hanging around, what your environment is. And if it's not uplifting you, if it's not empowering you, if it's not making you feel better, it's probably not the right space for you, no matter what space it is. People, work, school, it doesn't matter. If it's something that is the opposite of who you are and what you believe in and what you are about, you don't belong there. Nobody should be taking you down or making you feel miserable.
Yeah, it's just like hard. I think a lot of people feel like, well, I got a responsibility, so I got to do something I don't really like to, because I got to do the day to day. And you're kind of like in that survival mode. I'm
Yeah.
like
And
paycheck to paycheck, or I got to pay this, I got to pay the mortgage, so I don't have time to indulge my real love, because I got to deal with the day to day. But the thing is, it's that hard to actually look in that mirror and say, you know what? Sometimes you got to take that risk. Sometimes you got to believe. And the way the world is, they say, "Oh, you can't do that." Like, are you going to be Henry Ford? Are you going to be Elon Musk? Like, maybe you don't have the confidence to try. So then you don't, like, well, only some people can do that. But you got to look at it as like, why can't I do that? You know, why
Right.
can't I go and do that? But it kind of got like levels, and people are like, "Well, I'll stay in my level," because
Right. And you know what? I would like to share. So I have a really dear friend of mine that asked the other day, actually, what have I achieved that I aspired to do? And I was like, I had no answer. It took me so long. I was like, I can't believe I have no answer. And then I said, it's because I never had the opportunity to choose what I
Mhm,
actually, wanted to do. When that happened, when that double attempted homicide happened, I was getting my bachelor's. I had just left a really good job, but I knew that I was going to continue down that path. And then that suddenly became the back burner. What do I need to bring home every week, or like check to check, because I got to pay this, I got to do this, I have to. It was, what do I need, not what do I want.
mhm. Yeah, sometimes they're
you
forced into
know
that in a
and
way the
then
structure.
yeah, and then with time and other catastrophic events, being, looking at the ceiling and being stuck in your head, it goes back to, if you are miserable where you are, figure out what your exit is and transition to it. You don't have to stop something like a job cold turkey without having another job lined up. Like, most of us didn't just become podcasters or consultants. I am a consultant today, but that took a long time. It just doesn't happen overnight. It's something that you say, okay, this is not what I want to do. I don't want to be in this type of dynamics. I don't want to be in this type of politics. I'd rather just be in and out, because I only have to, deliver. I just have deliverables. That's it. And
Mhm.
when you're there, it's an amazing feeling, which because you get there. But again, going back to the growth and understanding who you are, who you're not, what you want, how to get there and get to that transition. If you're stuck doing something you hate doing, you know that you're doing it for X amount of time because you're working towards the exit.
Yeah, I think that you have to have an approach. The way I looked at it is like I wanted to have a day job that wasn't like, I'm an artist. I'd rather be playing my synthesizer all day or playing my piano. But I'm realistic. Like, I got to pay the bills. But I have, I'm a software developer. But I didn't want to go in that corporate structure because it wasn't working for me, because I didn't look like the people that where it's working for. So it's like, okay, like, so you guys, when I was a kid, it's like I was looking at Star Trek and Leonard Nimoy, and I wanted to aspire to that, and I was aspiring to that, but I just don't look like them, so they don't know how to deal with me. So it's
Right.
okay, fine, but I'm not going to drop out. I found a way to deal with it, project to project, deliverable to deliverable, where they can't mess around with me. And so
Right.
now I still get to do it, and I get to do this. So I get to do, like, so I'm doing like a life that I like, because I'm able to be creative, and I'm able to do satisfy my responsibilities, and I have to be a starving artist. And
Right.
that's like the balance is like, a lot of people think it's all or nothing, and it's like it's degrees of what you can do.
That's
You
right.
know.
That's right. That's right. And I want to talk about that right quick, about violence at work, right? So domestic violence at work. So they talk about workplace violence, and that is a mandated OSHA requirement, okay?
Mhm.
And when you look at the status or the statistics behind workplace violence, over 50% of that is actually domestic violence spillover,
Mhm.
okay? And when you look at how much it takes away from productivity, not just, the bottom line, I mean, across the board, how much time is lost, who's being distracted, how much time is being, beyond vacation, beyond PTO, the drama that's coming into the job, etc. Right. And then the assistant employee program, the EAP programs, they have, help for, if you're a gambler, if you're an
Mhm.
alcoholic, if you're a porn addict, it's like, where is the help for people that actually just want to be somewhere safe and not feel like work is their escape, and or work is their only way to, yeah, I guess escape is what I'm saying.
Mhm.
But There's nothing there. There's nothing
There's no program.
currently.
They haven't set it up. There's nothing addressing it.
Right. So when we're talking about safety and violence at work, my goal, my vision, I told you my mission earlier, but my vision now is to actually go find a way to mandate that OSHA incorporate domestic violence into the workplace violence policy based on the statistics. And homicide, workplace homicide, that's over 70% domestic
Yeah,
violence
that's
spillover.
yeah, that's a really bad. What we have in the United States right now is just a lot of kind of this mentality that people the police sometimes don't know how to deal with it. Well, they don't deal with it in the best way, and then the workplace doesn't deal with it, and so we just have people feel like, oh, well, people should have the right to do whatever they want to do without understanding if you're threatening other people, if you're threatening the safety of other people at all kinds of levels. Because I've been threatened because people didn't, like me because of like who I am, and they don't know me, but they just didn't like me, and they did things, and there's like psychological violence, and then there's physical violence, and there's people doing intimidation and bullying, and
That's right.
nobody knows how to deal with it, and HR doesn't deal with it. I've been in
Nope.
corporate world for 20 years, and they didn't deal with it at all. Every time I brought it to major companies, they didn't know how to deal with it at all. They never addressed it in the right way. That's why I went independent, because I got sick of a bureaucracy that would not handle that problem. They just
Yeah.
did not know how to deal with it. So now I work remotely and I don't have to worry, because what I do, I can do remotely. And I found it solved a lot of problems, because then it's like I'm just measured on what I can do. And then I don't have to deal with those bad interactions, because
Yes.
it's not necessary for what I have to do, because what I have to do is so technical, it doesn't matter. Um,
Right.
but so I solved that problem, but people still have to deal with that day to day, face to face, hostile environments. Now, how do you mandate people respect people? Whether for whatever, you should respect other human beings, and there's a lack of respect, and I think that's where the foundation is, like not respecting people, and I just something has to be done to actually ingrain, like, citizenship is respect for other people beyond yourself.
Isn't that crazy as grown adults? Isn't that crazy that, that we have to go to that extreme to like actually train people and teach what that is? And, I just want to acknowledge that you sharing that is like a huge form of post traumatic growth, also. I mean, listen to everything that you just said, that all these derogatory statements about, what people did or how you felt and what you went through, what you exposed to, what never worked out, what didn't pan out, what wasn't handled properly. And you were able to navigate through all of that, have a voice, do what you needed to do, probably tenfold, because I mean, look at you today, right? So, what you did with that trauma and what you're doing with it for others beyond yourself, you are a definition of post traumatic growth as well. And
Yeah,
you just like put it, you just summarized it so beautifully.
well,
I have to acknowledge
well,
it and
being an
point it
artist,
out.
I always well, being an artist, the point of an artist, with like the way I've always done it as a songwriter, is we take traumatic events and turn them into art. So I kind of like, the way I look at things, I have this idea of expansive. So the idea of my music is expansive across genre, multiple genres, from
Oh
punk to
my
jazz to
gosh.
classical. So idea, it was like with the podcast, well, I'll be expansive with the podcast, which means I can talk to anybody. And people say, well, you should only have a narrow focus. You'd only talk to life coaches. But I talk to musicians. I talk to Grammy Award nominees. I talk to filmmakers. I talk to CEOs. I talk to people I think are interesting. And so I didn't want to put a boundary on it. So if people say, well, how can we define what you do? I say it's expansive. That's what I do. And so and people say, well, you should do that. Well, that means I probably should do it.
Oh
So,
my gosh. Okay. So we need to talk like offline, because I was just offered, I told you, social media ignorant. I'm so sorry. I don't know much. It's like a whole freaking job right now. But I was just offered to mint my logo and put it on the wall in the metaverse. And I was like, what?
Oh,
I
like
don't
an
know much about
NFT,
it.
like an NFT. They want to make you
Yeah.
make it into an NFT or something. Oh, okay. Yeah, you
Yes.
gotta be careful who you use to mint it. You gotta use the right people to make sure you own it. But that's a whole different thing.
Yes. And so but it's for the nonprofit. It's for the nonprofit. But
Well, you probably want to make
since
sure it all goes to the nonprofit. So just the way you mint it, make sure that all the money goes to them. That's the way you arrange it. But
yeah, yeah. So we need to talk offline because man, if you're interested in doing like a 3 minute music thing that based on the story, and that could be like a part
oh,
of
I
the
yeah, I
nonprofit.
write music all the time. Yeah, yeah, I write music all the time. So yeah, I like to do instrumental pieces. I've been doing a lot lately. I do vocal stuff too, but lately I've been doing a lot of soundtrack type of work or instrumental work. So yeah, I'm totally into that. So if you it depends on what your theme is, and maybe you could listen to some of my instrumental pieces and see if there's anything. There's a bunch of stuff I've been writing. I can always clip it out, give you 30 seconds, 60 seconds, depends on what you need. Cause my stuff is pretty long, but I can customize stuff. I can make stuff from scratch. I got a studio right here with all my boards. So
Oh, look at
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. I'm actually a keyboardist. So I don't sample. I actually play, which is a rare thing.
Oh wow, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm so happy. Oh my gosh. See, like I said, pure definition, post traumatic growth. And
But
so
I
many
think it's
people
really,
have it
really,
without knowing it. I'm sorry.
yeah. I think a lot of people don't acknowledge. Like if I go back to my grandparents and my parents and my uncles, they all gone through some kind of traumatic thing, right? And a lot of them never acknowledged it, and then they had issues, right? They had all kinds of issues. And you say
Yeah.
like, well, why does this person gamble or why this person did this? And you go back and you find, oh, this thing happened, but they never talked about it. And then, do you learn about it from other people? It's like, okay, I can understand like why did that happen? But the whole generations that came before me, they have it and not talking and not communicating. So you have no idea why uncle actually like why is he the way that he is? Because nobody tells you. It's like they kind of skirt around the issues. Like I think what we have to do today, my daughter generation, what I feel good about for her, and she's 23, is they talk about everything and they communicate very openly in ways that I said, wow, that's amazing. Like it's just, and it really it kind of freaks out the elders when we go to the family thing because like all the kids who are 20, 23 in the family, they're like their grandparents are going, what? They
Yeah,
can't handle it.
I find it pretty amazing how these youngsters are able to talk about their feelings the way that they do. I mean, emotional intelligence and mental wellness and awareness, those things were not mental health. I mean, none of those things were a thing back then during, our times, let alone our parents or grandparents' time.
hmm So I think it's awesome that people can get in touch with you. And I'll just mention it for the audio audience because we have audio podcast audience again is, https:// beyouриncredibleself.com and then / mirror. So again, if you go to that website, you can get in touch with you for like a mentoring or life coaching session, right? In your programs you have.
Yeah, well, actually, yes, yes, definitely, and that's also the exercise, the mirror work exercise. That's a direct link to the exercise.
Oh, cool.
So,
That's cool.
yeah.
So I did want to mention that for the audio audience because I also be mindful that not everybody who watches this actually watches it. They actually listen to it on other platforms like Apple Podcast, which will be on later tonight, or iHeartRadio. So yeah, because podcasting is still a big audio thing, even though we have the video version. So I wanted to thank you again for being on the program because we're actually reaching our hour mark. But I think it's very enlightening. Your story is a very inspiring story, and I hope people will go back and listen to it and watch it again. on the places that it's available. We're going to give you that landing page for your audience so you can share that. And I wanted to thank you for being a guest on the Phantom Electric Ghost Show tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an honor to be here with you.
Thank you again, and have a great night. And we hope to talk to you again in the future. We do have people come on the show multiple times in the history of our show. So if there's in the future to come on the show to promote some other issues or anything you're working on, we like to do that. So again, thank you for being on the show tonight.
Thank you.